Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. Welcome to the Open Metadata Community Meeting. We'll get started here in just a second. Okay, looks like we've got some people coming in. Please let me know where you're coming in from. I'd love to hear where our Open Metadata community is. And again, we'll get started here in just a second. Okay, we've got people coming in from San Francisco. I'm in Los Angeles myself. Lots of California people. Excellent. Thanks everyone for coming. Welcome to the Open Metadata Community Meeting. We'll get started here in just a second. In the meantime, please let us know where you're calling in from. Love to see where the Open Metadata community is. I'll get started here in maybe just a couple more seconds. And everyone can see my screen, correct? Right? We are in the Open Metadata Community Meeting for May. You should see some flowers. Here we had some sunflowers for April, now a whole bouquet as spring is growing. Let's see if you all can see my screen. Let's go ahead and I think, yeah, we can get started, right, everyone? Hey, so good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Open Metadata Community Meeting for May 2025. Excited to have you here. There's a lot that we have on the agenda today, so really looking forward to bringing you up to date on all the news regarding Open Metadata, an open platform for just data discovery and governance. Right. So if this is your first time here today, we typically start these community meetups with community updates and metrics. This is a fast growing open source project, and we like to keep everyone updated on that growth of open metadata. So the first couple slides, I'll be walking through how the open metadata community has grown over the past month. We'll see a new item in the agenda today. Open Metadata recently received an award, so happy to share some more information on that. Before turning it over to a member of the Open Metadata community, Nicolas, and he'll be talking about how he's been using his journey with Open Metadata over the past couple years. And then we'll wrap things up before we get to Q&A with an MCP server overview, talk about how the interaction between your metadata and your LLMs. So let's keep going. We had 5 new contributors to Open Metadata this month. You can see that total is now at 321 contributors for the project. A really great month in terms of GitHub stars, an increase in over 250. We're closing in on that 7,000 GitHub stars milestone, which is great to see. It was also a great month in the growth of community members. So we passed that 9,000 member mark on Slack. If you are not a member of our Slack community, it's a great place to get support, to introduce yourself to the Open Metadata community, to ask for feature requests, to share what your Open Metadata journey has been like. And as you can see, it is growing quite significantly. So thank you all that have been posting in that community that just recently joined since last month. This was a great number to see, pretty high compared to previous months. So great numbers there. And then between our Twitter and meetup groups, you might be in these communities already. if you are here, but that continues to grow as well. So we saw some great growth here, especially in the number of Slack community members. I think that means the open metadata awareness is growing, and not just awareness of our project, but interest in it as well, right? I think GitHub stars are a big indicator of this is something that could be useful for me or something that could be interesting. So we're seeing that awareness and interest really start to accelerate. These were great months, I think, for these two metrics in particular. So we always talk about how open metadata is growing in terms of the amount of code that we're adding, the merged PRs week over week. You can see that there was a dip here in the beginning of the month. The Collate team was on an offsite. You can see a little picture of all of us getting together in Bangkok, where there was less than half of the PRs that you can see in a usual week that were merged that week. It's still pretty amazing, that the team was able to get so many code updates pushed through that week, but then you can see in the following week it picked right back up to its near peak that it was just a month before, right? So I think that you can expect to see your PRs will continue to be pushed through. This is, a very great pace that we like to see, even considering this offsite that we had. There was 220 PRs that were merged over the past month. And you can see the support posts have stayed pretty steady around this 100 posts a week mark. There's been 445 questions asked in Slack over the past 4 weeks. You can see of those 400 and nearly 450 over the past 4 weeks, most of these support questions are getting resolved. The ones that are not could be turning into feature requests or bugs. So please let us know any support questions that you may have. The number of Slack posts per month continue to grow. You can see April month over month, there was a small dip, but the overall trend from November, December continues to grow. It is a great place to be able to get, posts not just about support, but about what you're working on, your future plans for open metadata, anything you would like. We had 5 community contributions this month. Thank you so much for everyone on this list adding their code and their time and efforts to the Open Metadata project. If you would like to contribute, there is within the GitHub repo, there is a tag on our issues with a good first issue. I will paste that in the chat now. If you're looking for a great place to get started in adding your contributions to open metadata, you can look at some of those tags. There's one that I was looking at that is tagged good first issue that I believe could be in the next release that I'm really looking forward to. So that's a great place to get started if you would like to add some of your expertise and some of your coding or development skills to the Open Metadata project. All right, one more thing before I hand it off to our community spotlight. Open Metadata received an award, right? So the Bloomberg Free and Open Source 2025 grant recipient for this quarter was Open Metadata, and Open Metadata received $10,000 to accelerate open source community growth. So I think that this is really a testament to the value that we're all getting from Open Metadata, and it wouldn't be possible without the growth in some of the metrics that you saw in the previous slides and from the value that we are all receiving from utilizing open metadata. So thank you to Bloomberg, and thank you all for making this a community that is worthy of such an award. So really appreciate that. And you can find more information about this award here on our open metadata blog. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nicolas. He's going to talk about the past couple years in his journey with open metadata and providing services through the governance that he's been able to realize with our open source project. Thank you. Please take it away, Nicolas.
Okay, thank you very much, Nick. Let me share my screen. Please tell me if you can see it. Can you see me?
Let's see here.
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you so much. So let's begin with it. Thank you in the first place to all of you for letting me share with you with this my experiences in the last 2 years with OpenMetadata and in La Diputación de La Coruña. And let me tell you what did we do in these 2 years and what we will do in the future. So in the first time, a brief presentation. My name is Nicolás Gutiérrez. I'm the project manager for data governance at EDNON, company specialized in advanced technology solution that supports public and private organizations in their digital transformation processes. From EDNON, we will contribute with expertise in data governance, data management, artificial intelligence, and cybersecurity, helping our clients to make more informed and secure decisions. In this open metadata meetup organized by Collate, I will share with you our 2-year experiences in implementing data governance initiatives at the Diputación de La Coruña, a project in which we have used open metadata as a key platform to structure, catalog, and govern information assets effectively and in a sustainable way. Okay, let me tell you what La Diputación de La Coruña is. La Diputación de La Coruña is a supra-council public administration that provides technical, economic, and administrative support to the councils in the province, especially the smaller ones. Its functions include the management of local infrastructures, the social services, the economic development, culture and sports, and innovation and e-government. To do all of that things, the Diputación de La Coruña is used mainly two big applications to enhance the citizen interaction and to improve administrative efficiency. The applications are Subtel, based in a database in an Oracle. That's an electronic processing platform that allows councils and citizens to manage grants, plans, and aid digitally. We've got by now cataloged 8 schemas, 620 tables, and less of the 1% was documented. And the other one big application is the registry. That's an electronic platform of the General Registry that enables the submission of documents, requests, and communications regarding provincial procedures available 24/7. By now, we've got cataloged 4 schemas, 411 tables, and none of them are documented. Okay, the main gaps, the main challenge we found in this project. So the first one was the information silos. As I told you before, the documentation barely exists. Remember that less of the 1% of the tables scanned were documented. Another one is the lack of traceability. We know where the data is, but we don't know where it came from. There are no glossaries, no business terms. They have a lack of trust in data. For example, we found reference table repeated in different schemas, the same tables for countries, the same tables for villages, the same tables for organisms, events. And we have a very big technical dependency. The knowledge of the data model is limited to a few people in the organization. So, objectives and the decision. The Diputación to set out to professionalize its data management with a clear focus on building a common metadata infrastructure, improving quality, traceability, and understanding of public information, creating a shared language for data across functional areas, and laying the foundation for sustainable data governance aligned with regulatory compliance and public efficiency improvement. So we make our checks on very different governance tools, and we make our proposal to the La Diputación, and La Diputación choose open metadata because of it's very flexible, it's very adaptable to the changing reality of the organization, it's extensible in order to connect with current and future data sources. It has a very easy integration with Oracle, Postgres, ClickSense, Superset, and all the data sources they have in the client. It supports technical and business metadata. It has got a very powerful APIs and a very powerful Python framework to gives you a high control over the application without depending on the web UI. It's user-oriented and with a high usability. It's open source, and we are a very fan of open source product, and our clients are too, and it's agile. So at this point, let me take a break to tell you our main lines of work in 2 sentences. The first is to obtain, by the technical part, to obtain robust and validated documentation of the Diputación data sources used in Subtel and in the registry. And the second one is the business part. At the same time, we want to develop the glossaries and business terms related to these documented assets. Okay, told everything, let me show you our first milestones, in our first years. In the first place, in the 2023, the first milestone, as you can imagine, was the installation, the deployment of the application in the client infrastructure. We tested, we installed it in our computers, and we did it in 1 day, and it took us 2 days to install it in the client infrastructure. The first one to install it in the pre-production environment, and the second one to make it install in the production environment. The second milestone was the integration with the main sources, Oracle for the application Subtel and Postgres for the registry. The third one was the initial definition and organization of the business glossary. And the last one for the 2023 year was the definition and approval of data modeling policies and procedure. Let me take a break in this last point. What was the challenges? The challenges that lead us to implement that policies. The challenges were the information silos, the poor documentation, and the poor documentation of fields and tables. What did we do? The implementation of that initial policies and procedures. Very easy, 3 politics, and very easy to implement and to understand. The first one, the documentation of catalog objects. All the objects catalog must be documented by the technical team and approved by the data stewards. Our second policy defined was the deletion of empty tables and fields. All the tables or fields with no content should be deleted. The third policy was the creation of primary or foreign keys. All fields uses primary foreign keys must be defined in the model. And the procedure was that each catalog table is reviewed, assigned tags and tasks for documentation, deletion, or key definition. And after the task is managed by the technical data steward, an approval task is created for this data steward to approve and execute. Okay. Moreover, monthly tables with this tag are listed, and notifications are sent to the owners with the list of the pending task. Right? This was, as I told you before, our main milestones in the 2023. In the 2024, the milestones defined were the implementation of curation flows, workflows for the management and approval of tasks and documentation, classification and quality were defined with the team of data stewards. The integration with BI tools, ClickSense in this case, we made a full report cataloging with lineage and democratization mechanisms via the data office. And the third one was the data source documentation. In this data source documentation, we achieved the automation with Python and advanced use of the API for metadata dumps. We will talk about this later. And the key milestones for the 2025 was the translation to OpenMetadata to Galicia. That's a task, I'm very proud of it. The KPIs governance. Our task defined to governance the KPIs are to define KPIs as a business terms. We are working on it. To catalog and govern KPIs data sources, to build a complete lineage, and to the democratization of the KPIs through open metadata. And our first main milestone in the 2025 is use AI for integration for discovery and documentation processes. For example, we will use AI to make a pre-documentation of data models, to make a glossary analysis and proposal of missing or new terms, and to make quality rule automations, and to construct the lineage for non-supported models. Okay, these were our main milestones in the past 2 years, and in this year we are currently in. And let me show you a few numbers, just one number with you, because I'm running a bit out of time. As you remember, as I told you in the first slides, the documentation, the tables documented were less than 1%. Right now, we have documented more than 41 tables in all the schemas, in all the schemas we have scanned. I think for us, that's a big achievement, a big goal we get, and we are growing every day. Okay, talking about use cases, let me show you the second one. Is that it is the documentation of data source modelings. We take the data, the approved data from OpenMetadata to database models. The challenges was to avoid the technical dependency, and the solution was the injection, the OpenMetadata approved documentation of tables and fields into data source. How did we do it? With 4 steps, 4 easy steps. The first one is with documentation. All tables and fields are documented in OpenMetadata exhaustively, even adding entity relationships diagrams to facilitate the understanding. Second step is the approval. Once documented, approval tasks are created. The third step is the collection. Once approved, a Python framework is used with OpenMetadata APIs to collect this documentation from OpenMetadata. We get the approved definition, the approved terms, and collected it. And the last one is the injections. Once collected, data is validated, documentation scripts are generated and injected into the data sources. This is this last step. This approach ensures that documentation is always aligned, centralized, and accessible for both the data catalog and the storage platform, facilitating its use to developers, maintenance, and auditing of the model. And let me share with you our last 3 use cases. The first of all is the data office staff of approval for BI. Our challenge was to ensure the quality of the company's reporting and democratize them to avoid departmental silos. And we did it with a list of custom properties for the reports that are defined and must be periodically validated and reported by the owners to guarantee aspects such as quality, freshness, surface data, distribution, etc. After that, once these properties are reported, they are reviewed by the data office, who assigns the approval level and announces it in open metadata from its democratizations. With this, we get the first four reports democratized the last week. Then the use case number 4 is the auto documentation for Postgres database multi-tenant. The challenge is to document a multi-tenant database with the same table structure across its all schemas for all the councils. I'm talking about 80 councils, about 500 schemas, and something like 150 or 600 tables. A lot of objects to document. In other hand, another challenge is that the name and fields of the tables are encoded according to their content and functions, which complicates any new analysis or any new development. So what can we try to do? What are we going to try to do? We will use AI to analyze tables and to generate their documentation, and we will teach the AI to use OpenMetadata Python framework to generate the validation and approval task for this documentation by the data stewards. You could remember this graphic when we first established our first workflow, and now our goal is to use the EA with the framework Python and with the APIs to make the first pre-documentation, and after that to get it into the approval task. And our last use case for implementing this year is our master table and tables and quality. The challenge, as I told you before, we found similar reference tables like countries, events, organisms in different schemas, and the developments to replace this table for the master ones are difficult to integrate into the ongoing projects. So what are we going to do? We're going to develop, we will develop in quality test between the master and the reference table in order to set the quality of the data in the reference table, and we will send quality alerts to the data models and the project managers to prioritize the change of their models to use the master tables on it. That's in 15 minutes. It was my experience in the last 2 years with OpenMetadata, our future goals we want to achieve. That's all, my dear folks. Thank you very much, Nick. Thank you very much, Collate team, to let me share my experience with you. And you've got my name and my data, so any question, feel free to ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicolas. That was excellent. Really exciting to see. It was great to see that journey where you're just going from deleting empty tables and how we know like that alone can be so valuable if you don't let that go to just a couple short years, short months later, integrating this AI and Python and really validating everything and getting, really thorough. It's been awesome to see you, get a lot of value early on, but then be, not be content with just that, but then kind of, press this platform forward and see how much like juice you can squeeze. So that was a really great presentation. Thank you. And if you have any questions for Nicholas, we have this um, second part of our meetup here, but after this, we'll be going into Q&A. So please feel free to ask Nicholas any questions that you have about his implementation or his work. Would love to get to those questions at the end. But until then, we have Sriharsha and Mohit here from Collate that are going to be talking about embedding an MPC server into open metadata and empowering AI-driven automation. So if you two are ready, please take it away.
Thanks, Nicholas, and thanks, Nick. Let me hit the slideshow.
Yes, we can
Hello.
see. Thank you.
Cool. And just a shout out to Nicholas. It's great to see, how the open metadata kind of enriching your platform. It's one thing to build, and it's great to see others how they are using the product itself. So that's awesome. And today, since we are talking on the MCP, so I've been told this is the highest registered RSVP meetup ever. I feel like we spoke the right keywords into the ether to get you attracted onto our meetup today. So without further ado, let's get onto that. So I know some of you. Oh, all right. There is some latency. All right. So I know some of you joining for the first time. So I want to kind of set the right context. Why we exist, why open metadata need to be exist. So we know the data complexity growing, data infrastructure is turning into hundreds of different services, and everyone is an analyst today in an organization, right? So we all want to create a new pipeline, new tables, new models, new data dashboards, and making sense of that data is really, really complex. So what we do from open metadata standpoint is to build 90 plus connectors into various different platforms to get the physical metadata out of your different infrastructures into one single platform. Not only we get the physical infrastructure, but the relationships between those, how the data is getting transformed, what is the column level lineage. All of that is embedded into one single unified metadata graph that we built today. When we are building this, we are not only, for some reason, when we are building this from a day one standpoint, open metadata came as this open source, open standards API and schema first. The reason to do that is not only get the physical metadata, but also get the semantic information on top of it. So when we're building this unified knowledge graph, it's just not just saying that, hey, this table is read by this particular pipeline and it's getting created this dashboard, but it's also telling what data is actually flowing through this graph. Is it PI data? Does it have email? Does it have SSN? What semantic information that we are calculating out of this? What is account ID means? All of that information is coming through this unified knowledge graph. Moreover, we are also profiling the tables and the data that you're using. If some schema says customer ID is unique, is it actually unique? Does it have unique constraints? Like what part of the data is missing? All of these encoded into this living and breathing unified knowledge graph. So once you have a unified knowledge graph, you will be able to build for some reason, my keyboard is not working, it looks like, so I'm going to go into this mode. So once you have a unified knowledge graph, you will be able to build a unified experience. Why that is necessary, right? You have different personas that are interacting with data. As I said, everyone is interacting with data in an organization. You have data analysts, data governance, business users, business analysts. Traditionally, they end up working in their siloed tool, siloed world, but they tend to interact with offline or through the Slack or whatnot. But they are operating on the same data. They need to have the same context. For example, data governance person comes in and says, I'm going to put a PI policy that says every 90 days we should be deleting any PI identifiable data. That's our company policy. Once I set the policies, who is going to implement that automation to make sure that policies in place in the data infrastructure, right? So they have to kind of interact with data engineers, data scientists, data analysts to make sure that policies held through. With open metadata, with this unified knowledge graph, and we built the unified experience, they all can come into this particular single platform and say that, hey, here's a policy, let's make sure this automation is taking place. Not only they can set the policy, but they can see the changes that is happening across your data infrastructure through the automation that we are building. So that's what the unified knowledge graph, not only that, from a perspective from the users, they are also coming and asking questions. As Nicholas shown earlier, they are updating the documentation. They are asking questions about the data. They are asking for permissions. They are figuring out how the data is laid out. All of this also is getting into context of the unified knowledge graph. So not only the data that flows from the bottom up, from the data infrastructure standpoint, but also from the users coming through, different personas coming through and operating on this data, they're enriching this unified knowledge graph. Now, with this power of this, we are able to enable all of these different personas. With the same knowledge graph, we will be able to give all of this context to the AI and LLM models to enrich, to build automations, to take actions on behalf of you. This is the agentic AI that is enabled through this unified knowledge graph. So how do we kind of enable this to the LLMs of today? On the left side, you have LLMs, these amazing models that are getting built and kind of improving on a day-to-day basis. On the right side, you have this rich unified knowledge graph that actually gives the context to these LLMs on what to do, what is the data, what kind of data that you have, what is the context of the data, what are the users are doing today with the data that we have. And so there is a gap. How do we interact these LLMs with this open metadata, right? To that is the answer is the MCP, the Model Context Protocol. So MCP is a server that exposes tools where LLMs can integrate and talk to the MCP and get this context, just enough context when a user comes to the LLM and asks the question, hey, what is the customer ARR today? It can make this call to the MCP server and get exposed to this unified knowledge graph. Again, this vastness of your data infrastructure, neatly organized with the context of the data as well as the users, get exposed and tells the LLM, hey, here is the data that you should be using. Here is the metadata that you should be using to take action. Once it gets that context, it can take action and do the automations or whatever the user intend to do through the power of LLMs. So that's great, but what are the challenges with MCP? If you looked at any other MCP, the problem with the MCPs are today, the architecture is, if you have a data engineering team, let's say you have 10 data engineers, they have their own day-to-day jobs, and they want to interact with open metadata APIs or whatnot through the LLMs. Everyone has to start an MCP server locally on their laptop and talk to the APIs that we expose, right? So that's not a really a scalable option for one. Now, not only that, a scalable option is technically challenging for maybe a business users, maybe a business analyst who are kind of more into Power BI, more into generating reports. We want every persona in the organization to be able to kind of take advantage of open metadata. By exposing this level of technical details to the end users is not a scalable, not a practical solution. Secondly, from an open metadata standpoint, again, if you're a user of open metadata, you already know we tend to keep our footprint really small. We want to make this as simple of a solution to deploy, use on a day-to-day basis. Open metadata comes with just 4 components for you to kind of productionize today. We don't want, again, ship yet another MCP server separately that every user has to kind of install and know and add more complex to the solution. Secondly, again, the authentication RBAC has been a challenge in MCP. This is widely talked about in everywhere, in anyone who is implementing MCP server. But if you, again, from an open metadata standpoint, all of our APIs are authenticated and controlled by our very rich role-based and attribute-based access control. So how can we embed and take advantage of that into the open metadata, into the LLMs that you're using? And more importantly, when you are actually using this rich knowledge graph, a user who has certain parts of exposed knowledge graph and doesn't need all the context should be prevented from accessing the entire context, even though if they are interacting with LLMs. Like I shouldn't, if I don't have a customer's table access, I shouldn't be saying that, hey, who is the highest paid customer today, right? That shouldn't be addressed and answered by the OpenMetadata APIs, even if they're exposing through the MCP server. So these are the main challenges that we are looking at and kind of working through that problems to solve. So what did we do? Right. So again, OpenMetadata, one of the things that we do is to expose applications as framework. Applications are a way to kind of embed your own little tools and make enrich OpenMetadata server. This could be, if you're already kind of playing around with OpenMetadata, you are familiar with it. So I can go to settings and applications. You see a variety of different applications already provided for you. There are a few things like available in data insights reports, search indexing, telemetry, and reverse metadata. These kind of things already exposed into open source. And there are other applications that we built as well that enables and enriches the feature set that we have on top of open metadata. This is a pluggable application framework. So that's a great way to kind of take advantage of application framework to provide an MCP server. So what we did is to use that application server, build an MCP server as an application. So the advantage of that is to, when you start the OpenMetadata server, you will have an MCP server that you can enable. Once you enable, it automatically exposes the MCP server APIs along with the OpenMetadata APIs. So what that means for you as a user, now just like I'm connecting to my REST APIs in OpenMetadata server, I can use my LLM clients like Claude Desktop, Goose, or ChatGPT, connect to my MCP server that is running as part of OpenMetadata server. So you as a operator of OpenMetadata server, you just install OpenMetadata, enable MCP server. Anyone in your organization can take advantage of MCP server that is embedded. So I don't have to run my own local MCP server, connect to OpenMetadata server. I can make my directly connect to OpenMetadata server endpoint and get exposed to MCP APIs. Now that's one problem. The second thing is we talked about user authentications and everything else. Again, from that standpoint, we expose user authentication to SSOs, and we provide ingestion path through JWT tokens and everything. And as a user, I also have an ability to kind of use APIs through my personal access token. So I can go to my profile and go to the access token and generate a token and have a token expiration days configurable and generate this token. So this token will have embedded my identity. So when I'm using this token, I'm doing on behalf of my user, which is my identity in this case, Harsha. And when I'm doing this, I also get my permissions associated with it. My roles, my inherited roles, all the policies that are restricted for me will be taken into account. So the great advantage of using this personal access token as part of my Cloud Desktop, I can connect to my OpenMetadata server using my personal access token. So whenever I'm making a request through the power of LLMs, it's assuming my identity through the personal access token and making these calls into MCP. So all my policies and everything will be acted upon accordingly into this MCP. And the part of knowledge graph I am privileged to access to will be given access through the LM as well, so that it's not exposing wide variety of data that I don't have access to, but only my context to it. So those two are really important for us to go into kind of provide this as a production-ready MCP server. So what we did, so out of the box deployment, so you don't have to run yet another server. Your users don't need to worry about running yet another server, at another component as part of your infrastructure. So run OpenMetadata server, enable MCP server. Everyone in your organizations will have the benefit of connecting to a Cloud Desktop, any of your LLM tools. It's not just an API wrapper. Again, we are using the internal details of our knowledge graph. We are exposing all these details from lineage, from metadata, schemas, and everything else, also along with the test results, test quality results that are you're writing, you're exposing all of this information into open metadata. All of this will be available to the knowledge graph, through the knowledge graph to the LLMs. For example, maybe a data analyst comes in, hey, I want to build a customer ARR, and it provides few tables back to it. It can also say that, hey, out of these tables, use customers underscore with the tier 1 table because it is highest graded and it has the higher in the passing data quality results for last n number of days. So this is the right table for you to use rather than exposing random tables to the users. Native authentication authorization, bring the user context who's using it, what permission they have, what part of the metadata they can be using, and embed that into LLM rather than exposing the entire metadata without any security or any role-based access control. So these three are baked into it. So this makes it really easy, really scalable, again, taking into authentication authorization from day one rather than implementing as a after that. So this is what we have done so far. Now it's time for demo. So Mohit, you want to share?
Okay, so imagine being a data analyst who is trying to build some dashboard and would like to have the knowledge and information we have in open metadata, have some contextual summary and insights using this MCP tool, and use that information to build the maybe customer retention dashboard out of it. So we can always look for customer table in open metadata, try to analyze those tables, what all kind of columns it has, what all queries are associated with it, and based on that, we can still build customer retention table dashboard that we're trying to build. But now, since we have MCP, we can go ahead and maybe give a prompt asking it to get the relevant information related to the customers table, analyze that information. Let's see what it does when we give this as a prompt. So as you can see, it's trying to look for customers and the tables that are related to customer. This information is coming from open metadata. We have the description, the queries, which says what all kind of table these tables are getting joined with. For example, if you take a look at in customer, it has a bunch of queries that are associated with it, and it is joined with other tables, right? So this information is also used by this to look for other tables. For example, even though I'm asking about the customer tables, it looks for order table and other tables that might be associated with these tables. And then after that, it gets the core tables that might give the right kind of information to build the dashboard. For example, dim customer is one such table, raw customer is also one such table. Then these can be joined with orders and sales tables to get the required information that is needed to build that. But for now, let's say I'm more interested in this dim customers table. So what I'm going to do is, maybe this sounds interesting. Can you tell me more about it and analyze what all theories it uses and explain them? So what it's going to do is it's going to fetch the information about dim customer now and what all queries are associated with it. And these tables are related to that. So it's trying to build that information. So it gives me like information about the customer, like it has 29 columns. It has some customer segmentation columns, like new, returning, loyal, and stuff. These are the segmentation column flags. These are the purchase history columns and whatnot, right? And on top of that, it is also getting the queries that are associated with the dim customer. Like this query basically gives you a customer segmentation distribution. And another query is giving you what kind of customer are at risk and how you can identify using these queries, right? So all this information summarized in a nice format available. And then you can always go ahead and ask it to do something like this. Can you build the customer retention dashboard based on above information you have from OpenMetadata? I use some sample data to build that for now. Later, maybe I can replace with actual data that I can get from above here. let's see what it does. So it's trying to build the dashboard based on different queries. So as you can see that we had this query where it was segmenting by customer lifetime value, right? And it's trying to build all that information over here using this as the context that is coming from open metadata. Let's give it some time. Okay, so as you can see, even though it's dummy data, you can actually use this, and you can always populate with the actual data that you get from the queries that are here. But you get a nice dashboard where you can visualize what is the current retention rate, how many of what percentage of your customer at risk, and you can also get a bunch of graphs and pie chart giving you the customer segmentation, what percentages of new and what not, right? In actual scenarios, you will give the actual data and then just simply use the same code, supply it, and then get a visualization of how things are happening. Okay, another scenario would be, imagine you being a data steward, and you see there are a bunch of customer tables that does not really have any owners, and there is a data team, and I want as a data steward that these customer tables needs to be owned by this data team. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to MCP. I'm going to ask it to do a bunch of things. Find the assets that are basically talking about customers, and then see which of those have no owners that are associated with it. And then find the information about data team and then add that data team as owners for all the customer assets that this tool finds. So let's see what it does. Okay, it's trying to look for the customer tables first using the search tool that we have. So it got 4 tables that matches the criteria, and then it fetches the data team information, and then it's trying to patch the information about ownership for these different uh, assets we have, customer asset tables we have. So if I head over to data team now, it earlier had 0 assets. But as you can see, it starts populating now. Raw customer has an owner, which is data team. Same goes for dim customer and customer events. Okay. So then at the end, it also gives a summary of for which all tables it has populated that assets. So this way, we can also automate the process of assigning ownership based on certain criteria, where you're looking for different assets, checking whether they have some owners or not, and then assigning some team or a user as owner using this tool.
What we are doing. So it's currently work in progress. We have the earlier tool available, mentioned in the PR just this week into our open source. It's coming into 1.8. This is an open source release. We'll continue to have more and more tools. And again, the context of open metadata, the rich knowledge graph that we maintain will enable you to do kind of different personas, different use cases that we just showed, all the way from data governance team, creating a business glossary terms, data analyst trying to find the right table and understanding the queries that are running as table. From a data engineering perspective, understanding their status of pipelines. Again, the benefit of using OpenMetadata MCP Server is we backed by that generic global unified knowledge graph that powers all of this metadata and all of these queries together. So we are excited get you the MCP server the right way, in a scalable way, in a simple format, with authentication and role access control enabled, not just a simple server that everyone needs to install. So yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you. Yes, and it looks like we still have a little bit of time for questions. I would also love, I saw Arturo, I believe, hope I'm pronouncing your name right, not just questions, but after seeing this demo and getting this introduction, love to hear, this is a very broadly applicable, right? I think there's a lot of things that you can do with both of that. Having an LLM read from open metadata and having it write to or maybe patch or create new assets for you in open metadata. So if there anything specific comes to mind, like Arturo mentioned, implementing ETLs, implementing dashboards, building graphs, if there's anything that you would like to see, not just from a question, but any way that you would plan to use this, please paste that in the chat. Maybe we can validate your use case or help point you in the right direction, things like that. So happy to take any questions, any comments about how you would like to use this new feature. We do have some when it will be available. Again, look out for Open Metadata version 1.8.
Yeah, just to add a bit. So typically when we do major releases, it used to be quarterly releases. We switched from this time onwards, releases will be monthly releases, monthly cadence. You already see every week we are doing a minor releases as well. So our goal with open metadata, as we said earlier in the presentation, is continue to kind of speed the momentum. We are the fastest growing. We are the fastest shipping. We want to make sure open metadata is solving your problems, your data problems, and making you more productive. So 1.8 will be coming in June. So look out for that, and MCP Server will be part of that.
Excellent. There was a question like, can I install it like in my IDE like cursor? So this would be something that you are using, any sort of IDE where you're accessing LLMs. It's just another application for your LLMs to expose open metadata to. So I think it's my understanding this will be pretty flexible across IDEs. But so that was one question. Another question was like, just skipping the IDs, is this something that we could, who asked this?
Tiago.
Tiago, yeah. Is it not just, can we have this just embedded directly into open metadata so I'm not using any ID, any LLM, or any sort of like cloud desktop like we showed or anything else, but I'm just kind of like getting this full experience in
Yeah,
open
so
metadata?
it's in our plans. We'll kind of talk about more as we go along this roadmap. Definitely keep an eye out for our community meetups. We'll be hopefully demoing something soon on that aspects.
Huge potential. Yeah, thank you.
And I think there are quite a few questions coming in. Is MCP Server is Collect SaaS a community edition? It will be part of our open source. As you said, release 1.8. Look out for that in June timeframe. It's when we are releasing.
Excellent. It looks like that could be it for all of the questions. If you do have some questions that come to mind or questions that we did not get to, our Slack is here. Please feel free to ask them, and please feel free to join us, for the next open metadata meetup. I hope that this was a great experience for you. Hope it sounds like we've got some excited people here for this upcoming feature. I'm excited to see what you all build. Again, thanks for joining, and hope you have the best of luck building with open metadata. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Great to see you. See you next community meeting.